Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Photo Forward podcast, where we explore the stories behind some of the greatest visual storytellers in the world. From their photographic origins to finding work-life balance as creative professionals, to how to actually make a living as a photographer, videographer, or multimedia creator, we uncover what makes them tick and their shutters click. I'm your host, Ben Brewer. We humans, big hairless apes that we are, have become proficient over millennia at a great many things. Crafting tools, harnessing nature, you get the picture. But we're also adept at something you might not actively even think about. Habits. For better and worse, our big human brains are very, very good at linking stimulus, response, and reward through connections in our brains called neurons. And through a wild process called myelination, the neurons that fire together end up wiring together, making that connection stronger over time. Basically, if your brain activates in certain areas at the same time enough times, it wants to save energy and make it easier the next time those neurons fire at the same time. There's some really incredible research going on right now on how this process of strengthening connections shapes diseases such as depression and anxiety, but we won't go too far down the rabbit hole on that. You're probably wondering what the hell I'm on about and how I'll bring this back to photography, because after all, this is the Photo Forward podcast. Stay with me. So what does myelination have to do with habits? Like a neuronal pathway, the more you follow the action of a habit, again, both good ones and bad, the stronger that connection gets over time. The same holds true when we're taking photos. How we shoot drives and dictates how we're going to shoot in the future. Now, that isn't to say one should reinvent the wheel every time you pick up your DSLR or your camera phone. Keeping a consistent look and overall feel in your work is a must as a professional. More on that in an upcoming episode. What I'm really trying to stress here is not to switch over to autopilot and unconsciously, habitually capture photos. Your brain is basically subconsciously going, well, I've shot in this venue before with this lens and gotten this result, so why don't I play it safe and do the same this time? I know for a fact I've been guilty of this exact thought process. Earlier this year, I was on assignment taking a portrait of a U.S. attorney working here in Madison on human trafficking. While I was waiting around for them to arrive for our brief portrait session, I scoured the area to think of a good way to capture her image in a short amount of time. My mind first, habitually, gravitated to the front of the building at 35mm and frame her between the two major pillars of the courthouse building. Essentially, where my brain went right away was myelination in action. With the benefit of hindsight, I can look back at countless quick portrait assignments where I took the same tack and went to capture the photo the same way. So what did I do next? Here's the really critical part. I stored that photo idea away, mentally labeled it as the, quote, safe shot, and proactively did everything in my power to come up with two other portrait ideas and styles that bore zero resemblance to the safe, habitual choice. The first alternative angle I took was to go into a unique location. I wasn't able to shoot inside the building, being a federal courthouse and all, but there wasn't anything wrong with shooting inside the revolving door of the building. After tweaking my positioning to avoid being directly in the reflection of the glass, I was able to get this really stark, profile angle shot of the attorney that emphasized her looking forward and moving forward while still emphasizing and recognizing the space that she operates in. So what other things can we do to get away from our silly brain's tendency to take the energetically simplest route and follow our photographic habits? Well, as stupid and corny as it sounds, knowing is half the battle. Seriously, think about it. Now, we know from learning about myelination that we are literally in direct control of changing and adapting our brains, changing real-life outcomes. The best way to break out of old photo habits? Break those wired together neuronal pathways and do shit differently. Ever shoot portraits with a 400mm telephoto lens? Ever walk up to a total stranger on the street and capture their image? Ever get uncomfortably close to the subject of your photos? You'll never wire new connections if all you do is think through it. Different and better results come from taking action. It's your brain chemistry. Don't let it get in the way of you creating your best photography. As you might have noticed, neuroscience and chemistry and all that holds a pretty special place in my life, even now as a professional visual journalist. I'm working on a number of other podcast episodes that look into some of the scientific principles behind photography and making meaningful creative work. So if you enjoyed this and want to hear more, let me know. So my question to you all to wrap up today's episode is, what's your worst photo habit? Tag us on Instagram with #PhotoForwardMedia, and we'll share some of the favorite responses that we see. Enjoying listening to the Photo Forward podcast? Want to hear more thought-provoking, creative visual storytellers? Well, this is where you come in. We want to get the word out as wide as possible about Photo Forward and reach as many listeners as possible. And the best way to do that is through reviews and recommendations on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume your podcasts. If you want to support more deep dive conversations with photographers, videographers, and storytellers the world over, head on over to the Photo Forward page on iTunes and drop a review or even a rating. It means a ton to growing the show, and I personally read through each and every review to make this show the best damn visual storytelling podcast out there. So, as always, keep seeing, keep shooting, and keep putting your best photo forward. See you all soon.